what's up you guys, this is Rob from Gay Guy Plays, and today on The Daily Grind, we're going to be chatting about the future of Warframe. Now this is actually a subject that I wanted to touch on ever since I did the video about the things that might remind you of being a veteran, and legitimately I was kind of thinking in my head, I was like, wow, we look back into the past of where Warframe came from, but where is Warframe going? And because of the fact that PoE is coming up and it's introducing such a big change to the way that the game is going to be played, I was just thinking, what exactly is it gonna do to future updates, right? So DE is kind of known for being able to do massive crazy things, and that's what I've always loved about DE. They're willing to take a sledgehammer to some things that we hold dear in order to give us really big expansive changes within the game. You know, Damage 1.0 came through, Parkour 1.0 was done, now we're gonna get, I guess you could say, Focus 2.0. There's always big changes that are kind of like looming around the horizons, and a lot of people are kind of made uncomfortable for that, but me, to be honest with you, I'm very like up for what's next, and that's because I have a lot of faith that DE is going to give us an experience that is worth the sacrifice of the old things. Like, Zoran coptering? Is that even going to be a thing, like, with Parkour 2.0? Like, I don't miss that whatsoever. Like, going ahead and pushing face first into a wall for, like, 30 seconds because you've built up way too much momentum with Berserker. But the thing about Plains of Eidolon that really kind of makes me excited is because of all of the different things that could be coming up for all of the other planets. Because a part of me, when I was looking back at the events in the Gradavis Dilemma, you know, we were talking about, oh, we have to save these civilians, we have to save these civilians, and there was just no civilians around. Like, in that current state of the game, we didn't have anything that we really held dear when it came to NPC players. You know, we might have had a couple characters here and there. I believe we probably might have even had the relays and seen, like, some sparse people there, but really they were just parts of the Syndicate. We didn't actually have models for human beings that existed within the world, or I guess maybe not human beings, but, like, settlement people. Ostrons? I don't know what we're going to end up calling them in the future, but with DE chatting about the fact that there will be a Corpus settlement next, it's almost like giving, human isn't the word because I think we're all space aliens. I don't exactly know how the lore works of the Warframe, but legitimately a part of it is along the lines of the fact that they are creating an entire world now, and that's not something that they were able to do before in all of these kind of like small tile sets that they created. But now, because of the fact that they've developed the technology for having these massive landscapes, they're going to be able to carry that into other things. So, you know, we were talking about on a recent video with Xenogellion, actually, if you guys have watched it, it's the Arbiter's video. We're talking about the potentiality of what could come up with the next Corpus landscape, which I believe is going to be located on Venus, at least at this current point in time. So we're going to have a landscape on Venus. You know, who knows? If Plains of Eidolon goes well, we could get concepts and we could be delivered onto all of these different planets, exploring all of these different cultures. Maybe even some cultures are pervasive throughout, so we might see some repeats. And then, of course, we have the Eidolons, which are these big, massive threats in the Cetus settlement, right? So what kind of big, massive threats could DE possibly place in Venus? What could they possibly place on Mars? Could they possibly place on Phobos? I mean, there are just so many different things that DE can do with just the landscape, and that's the big thing that's always kind of blown my mind. DE introduces one thing, and I mean, the Plains of Eidolon isn't necessarily just one thing, but they introduce this concept of landscapes. And then all of a sudden, the game just opens up in a completely different direction. And we've seen kind of microcosms like this occur with things like condition overload. Everybody loves to give me so much shit about, you said you hated status, you said you hated status, and I always say, you know what, I hated status until status became good. Then when status became good and status showed the fuck up, I was like, alright, now I'm about status. And it's mods like condition overload, a single mod that basically changed the whole category. And it kind of is like groundbreaking that DE can introduce a single thing, kind of like, and you know, this is a sore wound, Naramon or Energy Overload, or Naramon's Shadow Step or Xenaric's Energy Overload, and those two things changed so many builds and affected so many different things, just like landscapes are. So landscapes get introduced and all of a sudden we've got a whole new thing. We've also talked about Tenno Warriors just a little bit, but that's going to affect how we farm Kuva. And at the same time, you know, that's going to have kind of like effects in other forms of future gameplay that they can implement. So it's like this one thing, this one concept that they've introduced branches out and kind of stretches out across so many different parts of the game that it's almost kind of like daunting because, you know, when we're looking at a past, we kind of started in this small area. We literally started on the Corpus tile set, a single Corpus ship tile set. The Grineer were there, the Corpus were there, the Infested were there, we were there. And to be honest with you, it's kind of like the same thing that's happening. We start out from the small place and everything starts branching out. You know, they started creating new tile sets. They created just different feels. So it wasn't just a Corpus ship, a Grineer ship. It wasn't just a Grineer asteroid and like a Corpus like landscape. It was funny because for a while we didn't even have Corpus outdoor scenes. And now we're getting landscapes? That's absolutely absurd. And the thing about it is, I believe that they started in January. This is something that started in January. So the fact is there's potential for them to produce a landscape a year and for them to introduce all of these big massive creatures for us to fight every year. And that's what I've always loved about DEs, because of the fact that they're ever evolving, they're ever changing, they're always introducing something new. And a part of that is great and a part of that is also slightly scary, because I could not even, how do I put this? I could not even imagine what it's like to start off as a new player now with all of the weapons that we have, with all of the Warframes that we have, with the 2 raids that we have, and then we're gonna go into landscapes, there's syndicates, there's pets, there's just a bunch of different systems, there's a new focus system, there's tons of different things that like are occurring within Warframe, and I'm like, y'all, good luck with y'all. And a part of me almost wants to start off with like a new player series to kind of like say, all right, so you're here, let's go ahead and give you some tracks as to where to go here, yada yada yada, and so on and so forth. But I figured if I started like a new player series, it would just go on forever, and then and then all of like the veteran players would be like, when you gonna find time for us? And that's kind of like the funny thing with Warframe is we constantly ask them to pay attention to both ends of the spectrum. And me as a content creator, I'm sitting here, I'm like, if I made videos for the new player experience, I would literally be down for like a month or two, maybe even 3 months, explaining all of the different systems that are going on, and then DE is probably gonna introduce a whole nother system, and I'm like, damn! Like, I can't even keep up with all of that. That is absolutely nuts, and it's just impressive, the things that DE puts out, but also, you know, kind of daunting at the same time. So, as a veteran, I'm glad that I'm in where I'm at now, because I'm like, alright, I just get these, like, bits occasionally, and it's not, like, completely and utterly overwhelming, because from a new player who's, like, sitting here and I'm like, I just got out of the war within, now I have to do what? And I have to farm what? There is so much stuff going on, and, you know, I don't envy their position. I'm glad that I got the work done when I got the work done, and that's why I always kind of push every one of you guys in my community to take advantage of the downtime, farm up the forma when you can farm up the forma, farm up the resources that you can use to create plates and pads and ciphers and all of that kind of stuff. Make sure your focus is on point. I'm like trying to keep you guys on the treadmill, because legitimately if you fall off for 1 quick second, it's gonna be difficult to keep on top of it. Make sure you're in there. And I can't even like I can't even fathom, like, I have so many amazing mods from Barrow Katir that if I were new I would have to completely catch up on, and all of that kind of stuff. So like, and I'd have to explain Barrow Katir to new players and Ducats, and like, oh my god, I had to explain why certain relics that I had vaulted items to a new player in my Twitch chat. And I was just kind of like, I was just mind blown at how long it took me to explain it to them. And I know it's a very simple explanation, but you know, from a new player standpoint, they're like, there's a lot that they don't understand. So when you explain one system to them, you have to explain another system to them, and you have to explain another system to them, and then they're like, that's how this whole thing works. And they're like, oh. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that from the position I am, you know, I could just tell a player who's been playing for a while, okay, this is how it works. They get it. And that's because they've been conditioned by all of the different things that happen in Warframe. And that's kind of why, for me, I'm just like excited to see what's coming up next, because DE's always got something new and different. Like right after Plains of Eidolon, right? We're gonna, well, not right after. We're gonna have Plains of Eidolon. I'm sure there's gonna be patching. There's gonna be bugs and things that they need to touch. But of course, we have the Umbra stuff, and they said that they're gonna introduce it in a cool, different way. That it's gonna be very, very interesting. That it's not just gonna be like, oh, here's a new, you know, here's a new frame. You know, it's not gonna be like one of those things. It's gonna be even more than that, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me, because it's like, what you gonna do with that? Like, how are you gonna add even more to that, especially when you still got the Kingpin system coming? And that's the thing, and you know, I'm not gonna guarantee this, but this is what, you know, they've said on previous dev streams, that they've got a working version of it, but it just got pushed to the side because Plains of Eidolon is coming out, right? So part of me is like, alright, so they're done with Plains of Eidolon, they polish up the Kingpin system, that's done, they start working on the next landscape. I'm like, now we got the Kingpin system to go over too? I was like, shit! There is so much stuff, and that's why I think that Warframe has an extremely bright future, but I think it's also going to have a really big future. A part of me almost feels like it's going to be a bit like, okay, don't quote me on this because I've never played this game, so I don't really grasp the depth of the craziness of this game. But there is that one game that like literally nobody new can play. I think it's EVE Online, where they have like these $1 million starship, not $1 million, but like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of starships, and they have these crazy starship battles, and there are like companies that are actually in there, and I don't even know. I'm like, I almost feel like down the line, DE, and it might be for the good or for the bad, might turn into something like that, where the veteran players are really going to have to guide the new players and just feed them little bits at a time for all of the new stuff DE is coming out with, because, you know, in 1-2 years, like, you know, maybe we'll have 2 more landscapes, maybe we'll have 2 more different, you know, big kind of boss enemy fights that we have to deal with. Maybe we'll even see the Eidolons. We'll have how many new frames by then? How many new weapons by then? What are we gonna do with the operators? Are operators gonna get even more stuff too? Like, there is just so much stuff to explain, and it's exciting. So a part of me is really kind of like, I'm looking forward and I see a bright future. And I also see, and this is one of the things that I want you to let me know in the comments below. Do you think Warframe has a long future? Because that's one of the things that has kind of like gone through my mind a bunch of times. I'm like, how long is Warframe gonna go? Because there are some games out there, you know, and I'm not throwing shade or anything, like Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, which have like a 2-3 year shelf life, maybe 4 years. Warframe is already on their 4th year, and they've literally introduced landscapes, and we're like mind fucking blown. There's a whole nother additional layer that it's added to the game now. How many more years are you gonna get out of this? And that's something that I love, because I feel almost kind of like Warframe, I don't know if I'm gonna say this, Warframe might be like the World of Warcraft when it comes to free-to-play third-person shooters. Like Warframe has been in the top 10s of concurrent players for Steam as almost as long as it's been around. I think it probably had to climb up a little bit at its conception. You know, it took a while to like warm up and get there, but legitimately Warframe's player stats have stayed steady, and that's kind of one of those things that I've always envied. I was like, you don't spike up, you don't get like dramatic jumps and dramatic drops, which is great because, you know, slow and steady wins the race, and I think that Warframe is gonna be racing on for a long time. Let me know your feelings in the comments below. Let me know where you see Warframe being in, let's say, let's not get too crazy. Let's say like 2 years. Let me know where you think Warframe is gonna be in 2 years after the launch of Plains of Eidolon. Alright, so like at the end of this year, then add 2 years to that. Let me know how you guys feel, where Warframe is going to end up going, whether you think it's going to keep going for a long time. How long do you think Warframe is going to be going for? Because to be honest with you, if DE keeps doing the things that it's doing, I think that it'll be going for a long, long time. They're a good-hearted bunch of individuals. They're not like gouging us like certain companies out there. And by the way, if you do think DE is gouging us, I think you need to take a close look at some of the other things that are going on in the gaming industry. There are some that are doing it a little bit better, but they're a majority of them. And a lot of these AAA games these days, Ooh, it's hurting out there. Regardless, I'm gonna leave you right there. Let me know how you feel in the comments below. And as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll chat with you guys next time. Bye-bye.